Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about life. Love and the way a man feels when you just move on without saying a word. I want you to really hear me on this, because a lot of folks out here don't understand the silence of love lost. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something most people don't understand when it comes to men and love. Let's talk about the silence after a breakup. The kind of silence that isn't just quiet, it's deafening. The kind of silence that hits harder than any words ever could. I'm not talking about a little awkwardness or a temporary pause in a conversation. I'm talking about walking away without saying a word, and the ripple it sends through a man's heart, through his mind, through every part of him that thought he knew what love meant. Now, I know some of you might be sitting there thinking, men don't feel that deeply. They move on. They get over it. And I'm here to tell you, that's a lie. Men do feel. We just don't always show it the way the world expects us to. We bottle it up. We hide it behind jokes, behind confidence, behind pride. But the truth is, when you walk away without a word, it's like taking a sledgehammer to our pride, our certainty, our sense of self. See, men crave understanding. We crave answers. We crave honesty. And when someone we love decides to leave without a word, without explanation, it isn't just confusing. It's jarring. It's like you were building a house together, brick by brick, day by day, and suddenly the blueprint disappears. Suddenly the foundation shakes. Suddenly you're standing there holding a hammer, looking at a wall that's been taken down, and you don't even know why. That's how silence feels to a man. It's not just absence. It's a void that fills every corner of our heart. It's emptiness that echoes louder than any argument, louder than any fight, louder than any harsh words ever could. And we sit there replaying every memory, every laugh, every argument, trying to piece together what went wrong, trying to understand what we could have done differently, and most importantly, trying to understand why the person we loved most chose silence over conversation. And let me tell you something about men. We're problem solvers. We want to fix things. We want to make it right. And when we don't get the answers, when we don't get the closure, it leaves us powerless. It leaves us stuck in our own minds, trapped in scenarios of what if and if only. If only I had said this. If only I had done that. If only I had noticed sooner. The silence doesn't just hurt. It paralyzes. It forces us to live in a loop of questions without answers. And that loop can spiral into doubt, insecurity, and even self-blame. And the thing is, a man might never tell you this. He might never cry in front of anyone. He might laugh it off, act like he's okay, act like it doesn't matter. But inside, he's carrying the weight of 1,000 unsaid words, the weight of a love lost without explanation, the weight of wondering what happened to the bond he thought was unbreakable. Now, I know some people say, well, if a man really cared, he wouldn't need words to understand. And that's partially true. Actions do speak louder than words. But let me break this down for you. Silence after a breakup doesn't just remove words. It removes validation. It removes the confirmation that the love you shared meant something. It removes the sense of respect, the understanding, and the acknowledgement that both people in a relationship deserved a voice in the final chapter. Imagine giving your heart, your time, your effort, your trust, and then being met with silence when you need closure the most. That's not just hurtful. It's soul-shaking, and men feel it deeply. Even if the world tells you we don't. Even if the world wants you to believe that we just get over it. Don't just get over it. We process it internally. We replay it endlessly. We analyze every detail. And we carry it with us in ways you may never see. And there's another layer to this. Men often define themselves by their ability to protect and provide, by their ability to be strong. And love is no different. When a man loves, he gives everything he has to give, emotionally, mentally, sometimes even physically. And when someone he loves walks away without a word, it isn't just a heartbreak. It's a challenge to everything he thought he knew about himself. It's a challenge to his strength, his identity, his confidence. It's a reminder that love is unpredictable, uncontrollable, and sometimes unfair. And in that moment, silence becomes more than just an absence. It becomes a mirror reflecting every fear, every insecurity, every doubt he ever had about himself. And he has no one to talk to about it, no one to explain it to, because the person he trusted most has chosen silence as their final act. And ladies, let me be honest with you. Men don't always express themselves the way you expect. We don't always write letters or cry openly or make long speeches about our pain. But that doesn't mean we're not feeling it. In fact, the deeper a man's love, the harder silence hits. A man who loves quietly, who shows love through actions rather than words, who puts his heart into every little thing he does for you, feels the absence of words like a physical blow. It's like the wind has been knocked out of him. It's like a shadow has been cast over his entire world. And because he doesn't always know how to express it, because he doesn't always know how to seek help or share his pain, the weight just sits there. And over time, that weight can shape the way he approaches relationships, the way he opens his heart, the way he trusts others. But here's the thing, men also have a remarkable capacity to heal. We might take longer to process, we might take longer to move on, but we are resilient. We learn from the silence. We learn from the absence. We learn from the unanswered questions and the broken bonds. But the lesson is not easy. The lesson is painful. The lesson is full of nights staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations, imagining alternate realities, imagining what could have been said, what could have been done, and what might have prevented the silence from ever existing in the first place. And even when we do heal, even when we move on, the memory of that silence doesn't completely disappear. It leaves a mark, a reminder of how fragile love can be, how powerful words are, and how devastating it can be when someone you care about leaves without giving you the dignity of an explanation. And let's not forget the pride factor. Men are proud creatures. We want to be strong. We want to be unshakable. We want to be the rock. But when someone leaves without a word, pride takes a hit. Our ego, our self-respect, our sense of worth, it all gets questioned. And that questioning doesn't always manifest outwardly. It manifests inwardly, quietly, subtly, but persistently. And the irony is, while men may seem like we're unaffected on the outside, on the inside, silence after a breakup has the power to shake us to our core. It challenges our understanding of relationships, our sense of control, and our expectations of trust. And because we rarely speak about it openly, because society often tells men to toughen up or get over it, the impact is magnified. The wound runs deeper because it's hidden, unacknowledged, and unresolved. And there's one more thing I want to point out. When a man experiences silence in love, it teaches him lessons he may not want to learn, but must learn. It teaches him to value honesty. It teaches him to value communication. It teaches him that love is not just about feelings. It's about respect, understanding, and closure. And while he might carry the scars of that silence for a long time, those scars also shape him into someone wiser, someone more discerning, someone who understands the weight of words and the damage of their absence. But make no mistake, the impact of that silence is profound. It's not a passing moment. It's not a minor inconvenience. It's an event that echoes through the chambers of a man's heart, long after the footsteps have faded from the door. And when I say silence hits harder than words, I mean it hits harder than anger, harder than rejection, harder than betrayal in many ways. Because anger, rejection, betrayal, they are active experiences. They happen. You can see them, feel them, react to them. But silence is passive. Silence is mysterious. Silence leaves a man to his own devices, to his own imagination, to his own fears. Silence forces introspection, self-doubt, and uncertainty. And that uncertainty, that unending question of why, is something men carry quietly, often alone. And it shapes us. It molds our approach to love, our trust in others, and even our willingness to open up again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I say that silence after a breakup hits a man harder than words ever could. Because words, even harsh words, give closure. Words give understanding. Words give an opportunity to respond, to explain, to apologize, to grow. Silence gives none of that. Silence leaves the mind racing, the heart aching, the soul questioning itself. And while we may appear unshaken, calm, even indifferent on the surface, inside, men are feeling, men are hurting, men are searching for answers that will never come unless someone has the courage to speak, the courage to acknowledge, the courage to leave with honesty instead of just disappearing into the void. And it's not just about heartbreak. It's about respect. It's about acknowledgement. It's about the dignity of love. When someone walks away silently, they strip a man of all three. They strip him of the ability to understand, the ability to heal properly, and the ability to close a chapter in a meaningful way. And that impact lingers long after the door has closed, long after the memories fade, long after the world tells them to move on. Because moving on is never truly moving on when silence is left behind as the final act. And I'm telling you, ladies, this isn't exaggeration. This isn't some poetic license. This is real emotions, real impact, real consequences of choosing silence over words. A man who has loved you, who has invested in you, who has trusted you. When you leave without a word, you leave behind more than just a person. You leave behind questions, doubts, insecurities, and a mark that takes time to heal. And even when he does heal, even when he does rebuild, the memory of that silence becomes a benchmark for trust, for communication, for love itself. And I want you to understand this silence is louder than any argument. Silence is heavier than any betrayal. Silence is deeper than any hurt that can be spoken aloud. It lingers in corners. It whispers in moments of reflection. It surfaces in times of vulnerability. And it reminds a man of what he lost, not because the love wasn't there, but because the last moment was denied to him. That's the power of silence. That's the weight of walking away without a word. That's why it hits harder than words ever could. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that often gets misunderstood, the way men love and how they express that love. Now, a lot of people think men don't feel deeply, that men are just stoic, unfeeling creatures who only show affection when it's convenient or when it's flashy. But let me tell you, nothing could be further from the truth. Men love deeply, fiercely, and sometimes in ways that are quiet, understated, and invisible to the casual observer. The problem is, our way of expressing love doesn't always match what the world expects. We don't always write poetry or send long, heartfelt messages or openly declare our emotions in public. But make no mistake, the depth of a man's love is often measured by his actions, his consistency, his loyalty, and his willingness to sacrifice. And when that love is misunderstood, dismissed, or overlooked, it can leave a man feeling unseen, undervalued, and deeply hurt. See, men have a tendency to show love through doing rather than saying. We'll fix things around the house, take care of problems before they're even noticed, sacrifice our time and energy without complaint, all in the name of caring for the people we love. And sometimes that goes unnoticed because the world's waiting for grand gestures, loud statements, dramatic declarations. But love isn't always loud. Sometimes love is quiet, consistent, dependable, and patient. And when that love is unrecognized or unappreciated, it stings. It cuts deep because a man has given his heart in the only way he knows how, and the response he receives doesn't reflect or honor that effort. That disconnect between intention and recognition is painful, and it's something men feel profoundly, even if they don't express it outwardly. And here's the thing, ladies, men often carry emotions internally, and that internalization amplifies the intensity of their feelings. When a man loves, he invests not just time and energy, but pieces of his soul. And when he feels that love is unreciprocated, ignored, or undervalued, it's not just disappointment he experiences. It's a sense of existential questioning. Was I enough? Did I give too little? Did I misunderstand what she wanted from me? These questions spin endlessly in the mind of a man because our love is rarely casual. It is deliberate, intentional, and thoughtful. And when it isn't acknowledged, it leaves a void that can feel larger than any heartbreak born from words or actions alone. Men are proud creatures, yes, but that pride does not negate their capacity to feel. In fact, the deeper the love, the harder it hits when it seems unappreciated or unseen. Men may mask it with humor, with work, with distractions, but inside there's an emotional landscape that is rich, complex, and deeply affected by the way love is received. A man may not cry in front of everyone, but he feels. He may not write a song or post a declaration on social media, but he reflects, he agonizes, he carries the weight of love and loss quietly. And because of this tendency to internalize, the pain of feeling unrecognized or misunderstood in love can linger, shaping the way a man approaches relationships in the future. It can make him cautious, hesitant, protective of his heart, and wary of investing too deeply again. And here's something else to understand. Men often define themselves by their ability to provide, to protect, to be the rock in a relationship. When they feel their love isn't understood, appreciated, or mirrored, it challenges that identity. It can create a deep sense of frustration, disappointment, and even self-doubt. If I am supposed to be strong, if I am supposed to be dependable, why is my love not enough? Why is my effort not being seen? These are questions men ask themselves quietly, and they sit with those questions for a long time. Unlike outward confrontation, which gives closure or resolution, the quiet struggle of a man's love is often invisible to the world, yet profoundly real and impactful. And ladies, understand this, when men love quietly, it doesn't mean their love is weaker. On the contrary, it often means it is more resilient. We love with patience, we love with endurance, we love in ways that endure time, challenges, and adversity. But the very qualities that make our love strong can also make it feel invisible. We're not always looking for applause. We're not always seeking recognition. We are seeking connection, understanding, and respect. And when that understanding is missing, when that recognition is absent, it doesn't just hurt. It shakes us in ways that words cannot describe. Men also value trust above almost anything else in a relationship. And when they give their love fully, they are giving not just affection, but trust. They are entrusting someone with their heart, their vulnerabilities, and their deepest intentions. When that trust feels unreciprocated, ignored, or undervalued, it can lead to disappointment that isn't just emotional. It is existential. Because a man who loves deeply invests himself entirely, and when that investment is not recognized, it challenges not only the relationship, but his faith in love itself. He begins to question whether opening his heart again will ever be worthwhile. And let me tell you, ladies, this is why communication is so critical. Men may not always express love the way the world expects, but they feel it just as intensely. A man's love is shown in small gestures, consistent actions, protective instincts, and silent sacrifices. And the failure to acknowledge or appreciate those things doesn't just cause temporary hurt. It leaves a lasting impression. It teaches lessons through absence, through silence, through misrecognition. It shapes the way a man approaches relationships, how he values honesty and understanding, and how he decides who is worthy of his heart in the future. The truth is, men love quietly, and when that quiet love is misunderstood, it creates an internal struggle that can be invisible to the world, but overwhelming to him. It can leave him questioning his worth, doubting his actions, and wondering if he will ever be understood. And while society often tells men to toughen up or get over it, the reality is that the depth of his feelings doesn't disappear just because they are not visible. Men process emotions internally, reflect deeply, and carry the impact of love and loss with them quietly, sometimes for years. And there's another layer to this. Men often prioritize action over words, but that doesn't mean words are unimportant. Even if he doesn't always speak his feelings, the absence of recognition, affirmation, or appreciation can cut deeper than any argument ever could, because love is meant to be felt, acknowledged, and reciprocated, and when it is not, it leaves a void that resonates quietly but persistently in a man's heart. He may continue to love, continue to care, continue to act, but the memory of unrecognized effort and quiet sacrifice stays with him, shaping the way he connects with people, the way he invests in relationships, and the way he values emotional honesty. And this is the reality men love, and they love deeply. They may not always show it the way you expect, but the intensity of their feelings is undeniable. Misunderstanding that love, dismissing it, or failing to recognize it can create invisible wounds that affect not just the present but the future. Understanding, appreciating, and acknowledging a man's love, even when quiet, is not just kind, it is necessary. It is a reminder that love is not only about words and gestures, but about connection, respect, and recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real for a moment and talk about what happens when someone walks away without giving closure. I mean, truly walks away, leaves a man standing there wondering what just happened, wondering what he did wrong, and wondering why the love he thought was strong enough to withstand anything disappears without a single word. Now, I know some people think men are supposed to shrug it off, supposed to be tough, supposed to move on like it's nothing, but let me tell you, that is far from the truth. Men feel this kind of loss intensely, but because we're often expected to hold it in, it becomes this quiet storm inside us, a storm that can linger, change us, and shape the way we approach love for the rest of our lives. When someone leaves without closure, it doesn't just hurt, it confuses. Men like structure, we like understanding. We like knowing where we stand. And when someone we care about vanishes without explanation, it's like the rules of the game disappear in the middle of the match. Suddenly, we're left to figure things out on our own. And here's the tricky part. We start questioning ourselves. Did I say the wrong thing? Did I act in a way that pushed them away? Did I misread the signs? Every detail is analyzed, every memory replayed, and we try desperately to find meaning in something that may have none. The silence doesn't just leave an emotional hole, it leaves a mental one, a place filled with doubt, regret, and unanswered questions. And let's talk about pride for a minute. Men are proud beings. Our pride is tied to who we are, how we love, and how we show up for the people in our lives. When someone we love walks away silently, it feels like that pride has been stripped away. We gave our hearts, our trust, and our efforts, and in return, the only response we get is absence. No conversation, no explanation, no chance to defend ourselves, no chance to understand. And that absence hits differently because men, more than anyone, need to feel like their love and their effort are acknowledged, even if it's not in grand gestures. Silence robs us of that acknowledgement, and in doing so, it leaves a wound that doesn't heal with time alone. Now, I know some of you might say, well, if someone really loved him, it wouldn't matter how they left. But here's the reality: closure is not about proving love. Closure is about respect. It's about acknowledgement. It's about honoring the time, the effort, and the heart that was invested. And when that acknowledgement is denied, it's more than just emotional pain. It's a lesson learned the hard way. Men are left to process the absence on their own, and that process is often silent, internal, and slow. It forces us to reflect, to question, and sometimes isolate ourselves until we make sense of what happened. And ladies, I want you to really understand this. Men are not immune to heartbreak. We feel it just as deeply as anyone else. The difference is in the way we handle it. Some men bottle it up. Some men distract themselves with work or hobbies. Some men throw themselves into other responsibilities to mask the pain. But inside, the absence of closure resonates. It echoes in quiet moments, in nights spent staring at the ceiling, in memories replayed over and over, in the what-ifs that never go away. That silence, that unspoken goodbye, can leave more damage than words of anger or arguments ever could, because it doesn't provide a path forward. And here's the truth: closure is a tool for healing. It's a way to take a chapter that's ending and understand it, make sense of it, and step into the next chapter with clarity. When that tool is denied, men are forced to create their own closure from nothing, and that process is complicated, painful, and imperfect. They replay conversations that never happened. They imagine apologies that were never given. They search for explanations that may not exist, and in doing so, they carry emotional baggage that could have been avoided with one simple active communication. And let me tell you something else: when closure is missing, it also affects the way a man loves in the future. Men are cautious by nature, but a man who has been left without explanation becomes even more guarded. He learns, whether he wants to or not, that love can disappear without warning, that effort can go unnoticed, that feelings can be abandoned without a word. And that lesson, painful as it is, shapes the way he trusts, the way he invests emotionally, and the way he opens his heart again. The wound doesn't always disappear, and even if the man moves on, the memory of that silence stays with him, influencing his emotional decisions in ways that might not even be conscious. And there's one more thing I want to point out. Walking away without closure is not just about leaving a man, it's about leaving a story unfinished. Every relationship, every connection, every shared moment deserves a kind of acknowledgement when it ends. A man who loves sincerely and deeply deserves that acknowledgement. And when it's withheld, it leaves the relationship hanging in the air, unresolved and heavy. He may continue to function, continue to live, continue to love. But the absence of that final conversation or explanation lingers in the background, a quiet reminder that some things were left undone, some feelings were left unspoken, and some respect was left unexpressed. And ladies, this is why it's so important to understand the impact of silence. It's not just about leaving. It's about how leaving is done. The way you end something can define the way someone remembers it, the way someone processes it, and the way someone carries it forward. Men may not show the immediate emotional response that others expect, but inside, the absence of closure resonates. It creates a ripple effect, a lingering impression, a sense of incompleteness that colors future relationships, trust, and emotional openness. When a man experiences the absence of closure, he is forced to confront questions about himself, about the relationship, and about love in a way that can be both painful and transformative. He may carry the weight of unanswered questions, the sting of unspoken words, and the frustration of unreciprocated effort for a long time. And while he may eventually heal, eventually move forward, eventually find peace, the experience of being left without closure leaves a permanent mark on his understanding of love, respect, and human connection. And it's not just about personal feelings, it's about lessons learned. Men who have been left without closure learn the value of honesty, the importance of communication, and the necessity of mutual respect in relationships. They learn to value the courage it takes to speak, to acknowledge, to explain, and to honor the love and time that were shared. And while the lesson is hard, it also strengthens a man, teaching him to navigate future relationships with more clarity, more discernment, and more awareness of the emotional weight carried by silence. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that is often overlooked but is so crucial in any relationship: honesty and communication. Now, I want you to really pay attention, because this is where a lot of love either survives or crumbles. Men, like anyone else, need honesty. We need communication. And when someone we care about chooses to walk away without saying a word, it's more than just hurt. It's a violation of the trust and respect that love depends on. You see, men don't always need grand gestures. We don't always need extravagant expressions of affection. What we need is clarity, what we need is acknowledgement, and what we need is honesty. When that is missing, it leaves a man in a place of confusion, frustration, and emotional pain that can linger far longer than the breakup itself. Honesty is the cornerstone of any relationship. When a man loves, he invests himself fully, his heart, his energy, his time, his loyalty. And when he does, he deserves the respect of someone who will be honest with him, someone who will communicate openly, someone who will give him the dignity of understanding where he stands. Walking away silently strips all of that away. It leaves a void, a silence that grows heavier with each passing day. Men are not immune to the effects of this kind of silence. In fact, it often affects us more profoundly because we are left to create our own answers, to fill in the blanks with doubt, to replay every interaction in search of meaning that will never come. And here's the truth, ladies, communication is not just about talking. It's about respect. It's about acknowledgement. It's about giving a man the opportunity to understand, to process, and to heal. When you choose silence instead of conversation, you are denying him that opportunity. You are leaving him in a place of uncertainty, forcing him to wrestle with questions that may never be answered. And the thing about men is, we don't always ask for help, we don't always seek comfort, and we don't always express our pain outwardly. We process internally, and that processing is intensified when closure is absent. The absence of communication can turn a heartbreak into a lingering, unresolved struggle that shapes the way we love, trust, and connect in the future. And let's be real, honesty isn't always easy. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes explaining your feelings, your reasons, or your decisions feels uncomfortable. But the courage to be honest, to communicate openly, is one of the greatest gifts you can give to someone you care about. It doesn't just prevent confusion, it prevents unnecessary pain, resentment, and misunderstanding. Men may not always show it, but we notice when someone speaks to us truthfully, even when it's hard, that truth becomes a foundation we can rely on, a bridge that helps us understand, process, and grow, even when the relationship itself is ending. Communication also teaches respect. When a man loves, he expects, at minimum, the respect of being heard, of being acknowledged, of being given the chance to understand. Walking away silently removes all of that. It communicates disregard, it communicates avoidance, and it communicates that the time, energy, and heart he invested didn't merit recognition. And that can be more painful than any argument, more damaging than any harsh word, because it leaves him to navigate the aftermath alone, without understanding, without closure, without a sense of resolution. And here's another critical point. Communication allows for growth. When relationships end, the way they end often defines the lessons we take forward. Honest, open communication can transform heartbreak into understanding, loss into wisdom, and pain into growth. Silence, on the other hand, leaves wounds that fester. It leaves questions that never get answered. It leaves a man with a sense of incompleteness, teaching him lessons the hard way instead of giving him the clarity he deserves. Men carry these lessons silently, and they influence the way we approach love, trust, and intimacy in the future. Ladies, this is why I emphasize honesty and communication so strongly. It's not just about speaking your mind. It's about giving a man the dignity he deserves, about allowing both of you to end something with understanding, about leaving with respect rather than ambiguity. Men may appear strong, may appear indifferent, may appear unaffected, but the absence of communication resonates far deeper than most people realize. It affects our emotions, our confidence, our trust, and our willingness to open our hearts again. And make no mistake, communication is an act of courage. It requires you to face uncomfortable truths, to express feelings that may be painful, to acknowledge the reality of change or endings. But that courage is what transforms relationships, what honors love, and what allows a man to process, heal, and eventually move forward with understanding rather than confusion. When you communicate honestly, you do more than just end a relationship. You provide clarity, closure, and a foundation for both people to grow from the experience. The reality is that men, like anyone else, thrive on honesty, respect, and communication. Without these, love becomes vulnerable to misunderstanding, pain, and lingering doubt. With them, even a difficult ending can be navigated with dignity, understanding, and emotional growth. Walking away silently denies all of that. Speaking honestly provides it. It transforms heartbreak into wisdom, pain into clarity, and loss into a chance for both people to move forward with integrity, insight, and a stronger understanding of themselves and each other.